So this is probably one of the most embarrassing things I've had to admit to my friends in a very long time, and now I'm admitting it to the internet, which I don't know how I feel about, but what I've learned through this experience, I feel like someone else could use if they find themselves in this situation. This bad Larry is a diesel, and my dumbass put gas in it. The very first thing you should do once you realize you misfueled, whether it's gasoline in a diesel or vice versa, stop the vehicle. You need to stop driving to prevent further damage. Second thing you need to do is take your vehicle to a shop. Call around, see who's able to work on it, and try to get best time frame to get the vehicle back. Third, you need to call a towing company. Make sure that the tow can fit your vehicle, especially if you have a larger one like this. You don't want to be sitting there waiting for a tow and then not be able to actually get towed. The last thing you're going to do is call your insurance. And this is a big thing that I'm going to talk about in this video because there's a lot of things I did not know that insurance actually covers, and the worst that they could say is no. If you think any of this could be helpful to you, feel free to keep watching. I'm going to be talking about this a little bit more in depth, but if you don't know what to do in this situation, those 4 things should get you started. So step 1 is a little bit self-explanatory. You need to stop driving. As soon as you drive and the longer you drive, the more contaminated your system is going to get, and it is, at least in my case, it was dependent on how much was in my tank of both. So in my situation, when I decided to be a silly goose, I had about half a tank of diesel, and I just wanted to make a straight shot to my friend. A little backstory, I was driving from Norfolk to Venice, Florida. 14-hour drive, I was 10 hours in, on 2 hours of sleep, and all I really thought when I got to the BP was green to green, we're good. I didn't think about anything else. Normally, diesel lines are green, and I didn't take... I know it's my fault. Diesel lines are usually on the left. They're green or black. They're a separate button entirely from the 3. It was an honest mistake, but let's be real, honest mistakes can also be dumb ones at the same time. So in my case, I had about 50-50 of both, and luckily for me, diesel is denser than gas. But I only drove at 10 feet and then I shut off the engine. I took the dogs out of the van for a walk just so we could do a straight shot there, not have to stop again. And when I went to go turn it back on, it would not. What I'm assuming happened was a sensor was triggered because the combustion was, or for lack of a better term, something was off in my tank, the fumes, whatever. Side note, I'm going to say this now, I'm not a mechanic. I don't really know a lot about cars. I could do basic stuff if needed, but with things like this, I definitely have a really good friend to call and an uncle. Part of the reason why I'm sharing this though is because I do have those resources, and I realize not everyone does. There's always the internet, but it's not the same as being able to talk to someone individually. So yeah, stop driving. Again, another step that's probably self-explanatory, but with a high roof Transit 350, I don't always have an option to find the best shop in the area because of how big this is. Now, when I did this, it was probably the worst time that could be done. It was 4:11 on a Friday, and everybody was getting ready to close. When you call the shops, they're going to have the same reaction, just a cringe. Like, you tell them, hey, I was a dummy and I misfueled. They're just going to be like, ooh. It was very much so universal. Because I was borderline panicking on the situation, I was in a place where I was not from. I did not have any friends immediately in the area. I had my dogs and I had a vehicle I could not use. So my friend Jess was also helping me call, and she found the same thing. The reaction is cringing and just like, I'm so sorry that happened. So if you do this, just be prepared for that. I also bring this up just in case you're in an area you're not familiar with, like I was. Depending on how much time you have and if you know someone that's from the area or near it, you can look at reviews, you could talk to friends. Definitely use the internet when you're doing this. By the time I had to make a decision, I did end up going with the Ford dealership that was in Jacksonville. I got very lucky with the staff there. Bryce, if you see this, once again, I'm telling you, you saved my life. I'm over-exaggerating, but I cannot thank this guy enough for staying as late as he did, making sure I got a rental and having me set up and actually working on all of this. To bring up the shops, without going too much in detail, because there's one very important thing that's going to involve your insurance that I'm going to mention in the 4th step that you should do, because that is vital if you can use your insurance. But depending on the work that needs to be done, you can be out in a couple days, or you're going to have to replace everything. In my case, it was only a few days. I was able to flush the lines out, and I think they replaced the filters, and that was it. This is kind of off topic, but bear with me. It kind of goes, it ties. So I was having a coolant problem where I would drive and all my coolant would be sucked into the system, and then I would stop the vehicle because the vehicle overheated, and then give it a few minutes and the coolant was back. So I talked to the shop, I got it towed, and I was like, hey, I think I have a head gasket problem. They came back and after their initial assessment tried to tell me that I needed to replace my whole engine because there was metal shavings in my oil. And when I asked about the metal shavings, they couldn't give me like a very clear picture or video. And the video that they took was like 1-2 pan, very blurry, I couldn't see anything. If you ever have a situation like this, tow and get a second opinion. Because it was a head gasket problem like I thought, and instead of being a $20,000 solution, it was like $1,500, and it was also covered by the warranty that I had on the van still. So if anything does not sit right, seems wrong, trust your gut in those situations and go somewhere else. Is it another tow? Yes, but a lot of times it could save you money. Bringing this up also because when I talked to my uncle about this, I kind of felt weird asking to do one kind of work instead of what they suggested. I don't remember what I told them exactly, but I think there was a miscommunication and they thought I just put straight gasoline into an empty diesel tank. And since it was 50-50, I had a chance of just the lines being flushed and my problem being solved. And I felt weird asking for it, but you're paying for the service, you dictate what happens. So if you do feel weird, I get it, but you don't want to go from like replacing stuff like this is not cheap. You're looking at upwards of $10,000, and that's on the lower side, at least for a van like this. So if you want to start small with like the $1,000, $2,000 solution, do it. What's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work. The best case scenario, it works. Next two things you're going to do. Third being getting a tow truck. You can either go through your insurance or call a local company. I don't want to say most because I'm not sure, but check to see if your insurance will cover the tow. I did not have great service with Geico when I misfueled, but I just went ahead with the toll and I was able to get my money back for it. They reimbursed me. In my case, it was not the company that my insurance normally uses. However, I was still refunded. So what I had to do was call a few different companies. The first one I initially called, there was a 3-hour wait time and I only had less than an hour to get this thing to the Ford dealership that was 20 minutes away. So keep in mind, you're going to have to wait a certain period of time for your tow. It's just kind of how it works. Normally, it's not an immediate service. If it is, lucky you. Yeah, you're gonna get a tow and then see if you could get reimbursed. Step 4 is the biggest thing that I'm going to encourage you to look into. I grabbed my phone for this and I'm just gonna screen record what's going up here, but when you go into your insurance, go into your plan. I'm not sure how other apps work, but this is Geico. What you're going to do is go to your policy and then go to coverages. From here, you're going to be looking for something called comprehensive, or it could be listed as other than collision. If you don't know what comprehensive coverage is, this is Geico's definition. Pays the cost of damage minus any applicable deductible that occurs as a result of non-collision incidents, including fire, flood, theft, falling objects, vandalism, collision with an animal, hail, malicious mischief, windstorms, civil commotion, explosion, earthquake, water damage, lightning, larceny, and damage caused by flying objects, missiles. It also covers windshields and other glass in your vehicle. Most companies require this as a part of your insurance, so make sure you look at it. The biggest thing to note, misfueling is not on here. But the important thing that I learned going through Reddit, thank God, is it might not be on here, but it's not on here, if that makes sense. Again, I happened to find this going on Reddit. The man from the dealership, Bryce, told me to look into it. He knew someone that was able to use insurance for this 3 times. I don't know how somebody did this 3 times. I know I did it once, but 3 times is kind of crazy because ever since I've gotten fuel, since that date, I have double, triple checked. I get nervous as it's pumping into the van. I do not think I will ever miss fuel again. I called mine and I was talking to the lady. I was like, hey, I don't know if I can make a claim. This is what I did. Is this covered? And she was able to look and tell me that yes, it was. If it's not covered, they will tell you right then and there. Now, if it is covered, this is the most important thing that you need to make sure does not happen. They're going to send a little homie to an evaluator to go to the shop to also look at your vehicle. And that helps a lot. in case you're in a scenario where they want to do a lot of work instead of the minimum to see if it'll fix your vehicle. Insurance companies don't obviously want to pay out, so they're going to go with the cheapest option to fix your vehicle, or in general. In my case, it was pretty quick. I called them on a Monday. They had someone out by Tuesday morning to look at it, and then from there, the work was done in 2 days. I was immediately contacted by my evaluator just to double check the shop that he was going to. He gave me his name. He told me what he was going to do, and he was there by the next morning and then gave the okay to start with just flushing the lines. Again, in my case, I was lucky. Flushing the lines worked out and it was fine. I believe, not a car person, but I do believe it's because of the amount of gas versus diesel that I had in my tank. I was very lucky, didn't really drive. The engine didn't seize and the engine light did not go on. You cannot have any work done prior to the evaluator going to your vehicle. If your insurance does cover this, the biggest thing is the vehicle cannot be touched until it's evaluated by the insurance company. If it is, they will not cover it. So when you're talking to the shop, what you're going to do is you're going to bring it in and be like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to call my insurance company and see if they'll be able to help me on this. That way they are aware, they don't do anything. Normally they should not. Anytime your car, vehicle, whatever gets worked on, they should be calling you, making sure it's okay to continue with your work. They need your permission. This was definitely a learning experience. Through Reddit, I learned that insurance covers stupid. Thank God. Like I said earlier, honest mistakes are still dumb ones. Do I hate admitting this right now? Absolutely. I still can't believe that I did this. But I want to say it happens, but I can't even really say that because there's plenty of people who never do this. One thing I did learn as I picked this up, if you put def in your fuel line, you're when I was checking out, I was just kind of laughing about what I did. Be like, yeah, I feel pretty dumb right now. Like, this, my friends say it's top 5 dumbest things that I've done in a very long time. And he told me if you put def in your fuel line, that's at least a $30,000 fix. So, which is also apparently covered by some insurances. Reddit. I did see that on Reddit. Everything in total was just under $2,000 for me, and then I had a $500 deductible. So I paid my $500 and I was done. Paying $500 is definitely better than paying $2,000 or the $17,000 they thought I was going to have to spend. I hope you learned something through my hard learning experience, but I also hope it's not because you're going through something similar, because I know it's a pain. I didn't really give much thought into how to wrap this video up, to be honest. If this is your first time here, what a first impression. I'm not always like this, I swear. If you're returning, welcome back. Happy to have you. You probably expected this at some point or another, or something like this. But I am building out a van that should be done in about 3.5 weeks. If you're curious to see how that goes, I will be backdating everything that I've done so far and putting it into this playlist. I'm also sharing any little things like this I've learned while going through this process, and I post my travel and book reviews. I also have 2 dogs. They're pretty cute. I'm just gonna say bye now. Hope you learned something. I'll see you next time.